The first guest of the evening is truly a poet. He's an artist. He is a friend and an inspiration to anyone who has ever played the guitar or tried to write poetry. Would you please welcome Gordon Lightfoot?
You think you had the last laugh. Now, you know this can't be true. Even though the sun shines down upon you now, sometimes you must feel blue. You make them best of each new day. You try not to be sad, even though the sky falls down upon you. Call it midnight, feeling bad. This is Carefree Highway Revisited, the show that celebrates the work of Gordon Lightfoot song by song, a proud member of the That's Not Canon podcast network. I'm your host, Mike Messner, and along with me today is a fellow Lightfoot fan from Pickering, Ontario, Lee McCormack. Lee, welcome to the show.
How you doing, Mike? Good to be here.
It's great to have you. How did you first get into Lightfoot's music?
It's through my father. It's absolutely through my father, 100%. I was raised with a lot of music around me, and Gordon Lightfoot was one of my father's favorite artists. So those records were prevalent. As soon as I was born, I was listening to Gordon Lightfoot records. My dad had about 10 of his records, Gord's Gold, Summertime Dream, Old Dance Records, Don Quixote, these great records, right? And he would put them on a Friday night, have a couple of beers, and I would be sitting there right with him, and he'd be enjoying the tunes and telling me about Gordon Lightfoot. And as I was getting older, I was being able to understand the lyrics that this guy was writing and singing about Canada and all that stuff. And it was just beautiful. It was just brilliant, you know? So I was a big fan, and my father was a big part of turning me into a Gordon Lightfoot fan, you know?
Totally. And my dad had the same kind of influence on me. Now, you being Canadian, it probably resonated for you even more for those of us down in the States who are listening to it. What do you like about Lightfoot's music generally?
I can say about two things. Number one is songwriting, right? In my mind, he's in the top 3 or 4 songwriters ever to me. You know, I love Springsteen. I love Neil Young. I love Steve Earle. I put Gordon Lightfoot right up there in the top 5 songwriters of all time. The way he's able to paint a picture in your mind with his lyrics, blending nature in with emotion, right? It's very Canadian. Like if you listen to Neil Young, Blue Rodeo, some of our Canadian songwriters, Gordon Lightfoot is at the top there, and he's very Canadian sounding. The other thing I love about Gordon Lightfoot is his guitar playing, actually, right? I'm a musician myself, drummer and a guitarist. And as I was learning guitar, I would love to play along the Gordon Lightfoot songs, right? It was a few years before it clicked, the capo. Gordon Lightfoot uses a capo on the 2nd fret or the 3rd fret, right? So I was trying to learn these Gordon Lightfoot songs from songbooks where they would have the chords written out, but a lot of the old songbooks were incorrect in that they didn't take into account that he's always on the 2nd or 3rd fret with the capo, right? So I'm playing these songs with these chords, and it just didn't work. And then I think I saw some videos, and I was like, oh yeah, the capo. And I learned about the capo, and it totally opened up a whole new world for me, the way he plays guitars, even the way he voices some of his chords, right? Like I got my guitar right here. So as an example, you think of a standard E chord, that standard E chord, Gordon Lightfoot would play his E chord differently. He would kind of, the top note, he would kind of put that sort of ring on there, right? So you think of like Sundown.
And for my listeners,
right?
Lee's got a capo on the 2nd fret. I think it's the 2nd fret. I can't
That's
see
the second
it.
fret,
It is the
yeah.
2nd fret, yeah.
Yeah, so you go through his catalogs, and it's either the 2nd or 3rd fret. Like you want to play Early Morning Rain and Canadian Railroad Trilogy. Those are 3rd fret songs, but most of it's going to be in the 2nd fret, right?
Yeah.
So that just opened up a whole world of guitar playing to me, right? And I just think Lightfoot's a great guitar player, like acoustic guitar, the way he would go between his 6-string finger picking and then the 12-string guitar where he would play the with the pick kind of stuff, right? So, you know, that was just maybe a huge fan too. And learning his songs, and as I was becoming a musician, endeared me more towards Lightfoot, you know.
The finger picking, I think about Paul Simon, John Denver, Stephen Stills also comes to mind. And I think about Lightfoot. They're that versatile on guitar. And I think Lightfoot is as good as anyone ever. How many times have you seen Lightfoot live?
I was thinking about that before we started talking here, Mike, and I think it's about 9 or 10 times. All Toronto shows. I've seen about 8 or 9 of those have been at Massey Hall.
Right.
And so what he would do is the 90s, I made a list here. The first time I saw it was 93. People have heard about the legendary Lightfoot Massey Hall shows, right? He would play Massey Hall in Toronto almost every 18 months religiously since the 60s kind of thing. That's his kind of home. It's his kind of favorite place to play. He always talks about how great it sounds there. So seeing Lightfoot in Massey Hall is the ultimate if you're a fan, right?
Totally.
So,
yeah, it's the house that Gord built.
yeah. So my dad had seen him in the 70s. I was too young to go. So 93, he was doing another run at Massey Hall. Back then, he would do 6 shows. He would do like a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then the following week, another Thursday, Friday, Saturday, right? So for a while there, I would try to hit 2 shows on each of those runs. So the first time I saw him was March 18th, 93, and March 20th, 93. He was doing the on the Waiting for You tour. Now, in between there, somewhere, I'm not sure the date, but somewhere in that 6-date run, he did an in-store appearance at Sam the Record Man. And I went to see him there too, so that was amazing because I skipped school, right? And I went down really early. And there's not a lot of fans like that would, hardcore fans that would do that. There was a bunch of us, but not many. So I was able to get really close and have a great experience meeting him and seeing that show during that run. Following that, I saw him. This is a weird show, but he played the Sky Dome, which is our big, baseball stadium here in Toronto,
where the Blue Jays play.
Yeah. Now this was a Simon and Garfunkel show with Gordon Lightfoot playing before Simon and Garfunkel, and then Blue Rodeo, who are a local Toronto band, great band, kind of roots rock kind of stuff, country stuff. They opened up first. So it was Blue Rodeo, Gordon Lightfoot in the middle, and then Simon and Garfunkel. So, it was a fun show, but it was odd to see Lightfoot at the Sky Dome, right? The sound was terrible in those big stadiums, right? But, it was interesting to see. I saw him twice again in 95. He came back for another 6-show run. I saw 2 of those shows. He played Massey Hall again in 98. I saw one of those shows. I saw him in 2005, 2009. I might be forgetting a couple in there. And then the last time I saw him was 2019 at Massey Hall. They just refurbished Massey Hall. So they closed it down for about 2 or 3 years to kind of build it back up, update it, bring it into the 21st century kind of thing. Yeah. So the last run of shows before they closed it down was Gord. So I figured, I had to go check it out. So that was the last time I saw him.
And of course, he was the first act to open once they'd finished the refurbishment.
Absolutely.
Which I think is, very appropriate. Was there one show that particularly stands out to you among those 9 or 10, or did the first one really just capture it all for you?
Like any of those Massey Hall shows are just fantastic. I mean, He would do 2 sets, 2-hour-long sets, take a break in between for 15 minutes, and he would switch about 10 songs night to night. So if I was collecting tapes and bootlegs back then, and I was actually making the bootlegs myself with a pocket recorder. So I can't really pick a best Massey Hall show. Obviously, the Sky Dome show was wacky. But if I had to pick one show, just being that close and intimate at Sam the Record Man, that record store where he did a signing and he actually played like 5 songs with Terry Clements on acoustic guitar and Rick Haynes on bass, just a trio. They did a couple of songs off Waiting for You and then a couple of classics, I think. But, I was literally like 3 feet away from the guy and not hearing him coming from the speakers, the PA speakers, but hearing his voice just like because he was so close to me was incredible.
And that was in the record store.
In the record store amongst the records and the shelves and stuff like that, right? I got a few pictures. It's great,
Did you have a chance to meet him after that?
I did. I lined up and what did I bring? I had a songbook I got him to sign. I got him to sign my Summertime Dream record. I shook his hand. I got a picture with him, So
he's so
fabulous.
Gracious.
Oh,
he's
so
gracious with his fans. He used to do these long meet and greets, and he'd do the Sam the Record Man appearances, and he could have chosen not to do that. But the fact that he does, says volumes about the guy.
I met him again a few years ago when the Lightfoot book came out. That book that came out, he did an in-store signing with the author. So he did an in-store signing with the author and Gord there. So I lined up to meet him there. And I was able to say, Gord, I love you. You're a national treasure. I'm proud to be Canadian. And I can't wait to see you at Massey Hall. This was before I was going to see that 2019 Massey Hall show. So that was a thrill, and he shook my hand and he's really, I don't know, he's just so personable and so nice. And you could tell he was really listening to what I said and he appreciated my words. And it was a great moment.
That's amazing. That is so cool. Well, today we're talking about Race Among the Ruins from the Summertime Dream album, which came out in 1976. The single was released from that album a little bit later. We'll talk about that in a second or two. The reason that I really like this song is that it's an upbeat song, which befits that record. It was the first track on that album, at least on the LP. It's got some really insightful lyrics and also some mysterious lyrics, and we'll kick those around a little bit. And he really gets creative with the melody. He strings together some notes and some lyrics in a way that you wouldn't necessarily expect to happen in a folk song. So he really does some creative stuff with the music without breaking up the overall format. That's why it speaks to me. Why did you want to talk about it today?
Couple of reasons. The lyrics, like you mentioned, I love the lyrics. I love the fact of you gotta get past your hardships. Like whatever this song is about, if it's about a relationship, if it's about a drug addiction, a mental illness, it's just about getting past whatever burdens you, kind of thing. I love that kind of sentiment to the lyrics. And musically, I love the kind of groove to it. I love that kind of stomp to a lot of these Gordon Lightfoot songs in the 70s, right? Not really country songs, not really folk songs, but it kind of moved in and out there, right? There's a little bit of a stomp to it, good drive to it. The acoustic guitar on it is great. What a great band he had, right? The way him and Terry would play with the guitar parts weaving in back and forth. Terry Clements has got like this kind of phaser effect on his electric guitar, which really works well with Gord's 12-string. The drums are great on it. Barry Keane, those little tom fills, very simple, but they're just placed perfectly, and they just really transition section to section. And yeah, it's just the production on it. It's got that 70s sound and just the nostalgic part of the song, right? This is a song that, growing up on that record my dad had, I would hear this so many times, right?
We'll be right back to our conversation with Lee McCormack about Race Among the Ruins. But first, a word from one of our podcast partners.
Welcome to Books Boys. Every month, the Dean and PJ tell you all about the books they've been reading and make some recommendations from our old favorites, plus surprise call-ins from authors to talk about the works that they're writing, original music, prize giveaways, and more. That's Books Boys on booksboys.com and all good podcatchers. Books Boys. Get it. Buy it. Books.
One thing I'll mention about the way my dad would play these records for me is he would say, you can't just hear it, you have to listen to it. So he would kind of put pillows on the floor, and he would say, I want you to lay down on the floor, and he would put headphones on, right? Close your eyes, listen to this music, and put the headphones on. So I would do that, and I would just take me away with the music, the melody, the lyrics, right? And it's just great stuff. Like you mentioned, his vocal, the way he would pick different melodies and stuff like that. Great singer, right? Like his background, he's coming from like choirs, right? His first gig at Massey Hall was as a young kid singing in a choir.
Right.
Right. So his vocal stuff is great. You listen to the background vocals on this track. It sounds like 3-part harmony of him singing with himself. I was looking through my my Apple Music library here. I have like 6 or 7 versions of Race Among the Ruins, a couple of live versions. So you hear the studio version on Summertime Dream, the background vocals are great, right? But you hear a live version from that same year, and Rick Haynes would do the background vocals, I think.
Oh, okay. That's
so
cool.
He's not as polished as Gord, right? So you hear this live version, and it's when you wake up in the morning, a dream will come in true, right? It's kind of wacky, but it's cool,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Lightfoot is not known for doing duets with anybody. And I don't know if he's had that many backing singers on any of his performances. So to hear Haynes doing that is kind of cool. Now, before we get into the song, you being a drummer, I wanted to make a little side trip here. He's played with Barry Keane fairly consistently, but Jim Gordon also did some recordings with Lightfoot. And I guess what I'm wondering is, you being a drummer, do you notice a particular tendency or characteristic of Jim Gordon's drumming versus Barry Keane's drumming, or are they pretty much indistinguishable?
They're almost indistinguishable. It sounds like Barry Keane is almost trying to play like Jim Gordon. Jim Gordon came first, I think, right? Barry Keane showed up around this album. It might have been his first record with Gordon. Was he on, what's the one before this? Like Old Dance Records, maybe, or Cold on the Shoulder. He might have been on Cold on the Shoulder. Anyway, Jim Gordon, I think, came with the Warner Brothers record deal. Lenny Waronker, he was the producer, and he worked with Jim Gordon a lot on other records, right? So Jim Gordon played with Lenny a lot, and he was brought in to work with Gord. He's on Sundown, that great drum track. Jim Gordon's got a bit of a crazy story if you want to do a little backstory on him.
Yeah.
His life's a little wacky, but great drummer, Yeah.
Yeah. And Jim Gordon was there first. That's absolutely right. I guess what I'm saying is that Barry Keane, for reasons we won't go into right now, really became part of the Lightfoot family, so to speak.
Especially the live stuff, right? So Barry was there for all the live gigs, because Jim wasn't really a regular touring drummer. He was a session guy. He would play on records, but not really touring guy. So as soon as Lightfoot started going with the touring, he needed a regular touring band. So Barry Keane has played with them since then, 75, 76, right?
So do you have a special anecdote or something personal about what Race Among the Ruins means? I mean, you talked about your dad kind of turning you on to Lightfoot's music. And as I said, this is the first cut on that album. But is there something beyond that for you that really hits home?
Nothing special to think of. That title, Race Among the Ruins, I love because it's very open to interpretation. Like, what is a race among the ruins? Is it a metaphor for life, right? What are the ruins then? If the race is life, what are the ruins? I look at it as the ruins are those parts of your life that are bad, problems, bad relationships, things that you have to move past, right? Hurdles in your life, the struggles that you have to get past, right? There's that line, if you plan to change tomorrow, do it soon kind of thing, right? Yeah, so that those lines is just, that chorus really hits me. So yeah, just that song, the title, Race Among the Ruins, and like I said, the music stuff. Like the music is just important to me as the lyrics. It gives me a feeling. It just brings me back to that's the 70s feel, kicking off that record, Summertime Dream, one of my favorite records. I love every song on this album, right? So it's just a big part of that record, a part of my childhood, a part of me, this song is. I love it,
Yeah, absolutely. What would be your ideal setting for listening to this, whether it would be on the floor at your parents' house or at midnight with no one else around or anything in between? Is there a particular time of day, activity, location that this is where I ideally would want to listen to the song?
Yeah, that's a great question because, music is so important to me. I take it wherever I go. So immediately it comes to mind, laying on the floor with a pillow, headphones on, right? Production on these Lightfoot records are so good. They're made for headphones, right? Especially the 70s stuff. You put on a vinyl record and you hear those nice warm pop and crackles, right? And you put the headphones on, right? And something about closing your eyes, lying down, it just brings it to another level, right? So I got to say that. But, another thing I love to do is I'll put music on my headphones, my iPod, and I'll just go off for a bike ride. I live down by the lakes here, right? So just going off into the wilderness with a Gordon Lightfoot playlist is just perfect, especially in Canada, right? We're here down by the lake. We got trees, we got rocks, we got squirrels and bunnies, rabbit running back and forth, and I got Gordon Lightfoot in my head, right? So it's just a perfect thing. Even like going fishing, fish and chips with my father, and we would listen to Gordon Lightfoot, that kind of stuff, right? So campfires,
Fantastic. No, you can't beat it. And you are in a perfect place to appreciate his music. So
yeah, like some of the stuff he's singing about, I know where that is, right? He name drops places. I'm like, I know where that is, right?
Well, I mean, I would think about Christian Island. A lot of people who are familiar with that part of Canada would think, yep, I know exactly where that is.
Absolutely.
Or even people who live on the Great Lakes, whether on the American or the Canadian side, when they hear the wreck, they think Whitefish Bay, I know where that is. Yep. What are the steel firms that he concluded the terms with, things like that. Now, the song itself, according to Jennings, it was his latest poetic take on a tumultuously romantic life. The audience loved it. Lightfoot's songs always take listeners on a journey, drawing them into stories rich in emotion and without a trace of artifice. Now, if I'm not mistaken, Gord has said that the song is really about apartment hopping and having affairs. Do you get the sense that that's what this is about?
I mean, it could be. I think a good songwriter leaves it open to interpretation, right? So you could put this is about relationships and moving on from relationships. It could be also, like I said, it could be about a drug addiction. It could be about a relationship with a friend. It could be with a job, right? It's open to interpretation, right? And I think that's where some of the brilliance is with Lightfoot. He's able to weave beautiful words together that sound good, great melodies, but then, there's a deep meaning to it, but it's not personal to him. He can kind of let it go out to the audience. You can interpret it this way. And I think that's one of these songs, right? You can interpret it any way. A Race Among the Ruins could be whatever that means to you,
And that's what we're going to talk about starting right now, is we're going to look at the lyrics a little bit. You think you had the last laugh. Now this can't be true. And it seems like whomever he's speaking to, whether he's speaking to himself or he's speaking to another person, he's saying, hey, whoever you are, you're in denial about the ending of whatever this is, either the end of this relationship or the end of this thing that you treasured really intensely. You think you had the last laugh, but you know that there's going to be more to it than that. Even though the sun shines down upon you now, sometimes you must feel blue. There's some reality you don't want to face, or maybe it just hasn't hit you yet. that something has changed and it's going to smack you in the face sooner or later. You make the best of each new day. You try not to be sad. Even though the sky falls down upon you, call it midnight, feeling bad. And now he's kind of advising whoever the song is directed to not be overwhelmed by the past. So it's kind of a contrast to what he said in the previous stanza. So he's kind of saying, you haven't quite faced this yet, but don't get caught up in it.
Yeah. We're talking about, things are going good. You're happy, but, a part of you is not, because, you have an understanding of the yin and yang, the push and pull of life, right? 1 minute you're up, 1 minute you're down. If you start thinking that you're always going to be up, you're fooling yourself. You're lying to yourself, right? You're going to hit a pitfall at some point. But he's saying there in the second part of it, when that comes, don't worry about it, because we all got to get through past this part, right? So you don't get hung up on that, and you kind of got to leave that behind. And I'm getting ahead of myself here because that's coming up, but leave the bad behind and focus on the good. Just keep going.
Yeah.
Especially when it kicks into the chorus after that.
Which is where we're going right now. Yeah. When you wake up to the promise of your dream world coming true. And I wonder, as I'm listening to this and I'm reading it, is it even possible that the dream he's talking about can come true, even though there's this promise that it's going to come true? Is that going to ever happen? And what is this person's dream world? I mean, if the dream world is that it's all going to be just endless bliss and an endless high or an endless romantic affair or endless sexual gratification, I mean, we know that that's not real. Mm-hmm. So it makes me wonder what the dream world is like. Do you have any thoughts on that?
It's like one of those things where you're saying, whatever your dream world is, whatever you envision to be the perfect utopia for you, you're probably not going to reach that height. It's not going to come true. So you have to be, you have to dream, but you have to be realistic. I think he's saying too, right? Like, don't get too hung up on this dream, because when the bottom falls out, you're going to fall harder unless you have this kind of realization that, it's maybe not, there could be a trap door in there for me, through the turmoil, leaving that bad behind. Like I said, the race referring to life, the ruins referring to the stuff you got to leave behind. Taking the good parts of those relationships and moving forward with that and leaving the bad parts behind.
Yeah, exactly. We'll be right back to our conversation with Lee McCormack about Race Among the Ruins. But first, a word from one of our podcast partners.
Hello, my name is Sandro.
And my name's Zach.
We are historians.
Well, movie historians. We're not qualified for anything else.
Join us on our podcast, Oldie But A Goodie,
where for all of 2022, we're reviewing movies from the year 2001.
That's right. Every episode, we look at all the movies that came out that week back in 2001. Then we pick one film and we do a full synopsis review.
It's Oldie But A Goodie. Sometimes, most of the time, we find bad movies.
It's usually a fun time, but also usually one of us ends up pulling our hair out by the end of the episode.
And we have a lot of hair between us.
What a selling point for the trailer.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty exciting.
Oldie But A Goodie. Listen now wherever you get your podcasts.
That's Not Canon Productions podcast.
With one less friend to call on, was it someone that I knew? And I thought there's some irony here. I mean, if Lightfoot is talking about himself in the song, he's moved on from another relationship. He's burned another woman. He's left somebody behind who's probably pissed off at him in some extent. Okay, one less friend to call on. Was it someone that I knew? And I'm just thinking, yeah, Gord, if you're talking about yourself, it probably was somebody you knew. Away we will go sailing in a race among the ruins. And I think, Lee, you really hit it, because you said the ruins are kind of the bits and pieces of ourselves that we leave behind somewhere after people change, after relationships end, and then we race through them because they're painful memories. I mean, we don't want to think about, I could have done this, I should have done that. That was great, and I'll never recapture it. So the race among the ruins is just trying to make short work of your past, and really just focus on what's ahead of you. Mm-hmm. You think I'm right on with that?
Absolutely, right on. Yeah, leaving the bad behind, focusing on the good, and don't let it kind of slow you down. You got to keep living, right? You got to man up. And you mentioned that he says the song's about apartment hopping. You think about where he was in his life. He'd just been divorced, and he's had about 2 or 3 years of dating Kathy Smith, and that didn't go well, right? He got a great song out of it, right?
Yeah.
And he talks about in that book about he's living in an apartment, right? He had to sell his house. His kids were living in the house still with his wife, and he was in this apartment, and so he's realizing, what am I living here? Where am I going? I got to leave these bad things behind, and I got to, pick it up. Life is short.
Pick it up. Exactly. And we'll get to the whole idea of life being short pretty soon too. If you plan to face tomorrow, do it soon. And he's either talking to someone who's suffered a loss and he's trying to get this guy back to reality, just saying, hey, the sun's going to come up tomorrow. Okay. No matter how you're feeling. Or maybe he's telling himself, look, you better change this running around that you're doing. Leave that sort of promiscuity around. Okay, you're going to keep getting burned. I think this is my favorite line in the whole song. If you plan to face tomorrow, do it soon. I mean, it's bumper sticker material, but it's great bumper sticker material.
Yeah, for sure.
The road to love is littered by the bones of other ones who by the magic of the moment were mysteriously undone. And what he's saying here is that everybody has made a fool of themselves when they're in love. When you get to be a certain age, you've had a couple of heartbreaks. At one point, someone that you've been in love with has made you look like a complete and utter jackass. And I think Bob Dylan said it best. He said, you can't be wise and in love at the same time.
Yeah. And, you get to a certain age, and I've been there myself. Sometimes you get a breakup and you're like, I have no idea what happened.
Yeah.
People that, divorces, they separate. I don't know. We were so happy. And I just don't know what happened. Right. That's I love that line, mysteriously undone. Right. Like the relationship became undone, but we don't know why. Right?
Yeah,
you can't understand it.
Or you can't, at least in the moment, you can't understand it.
You can't see it from your vantage point. Right.
Right. You don't have enough perspective on it.
Right.
You try to understand it, but you never seem to find any kind of freedom coming clean is just another state of mind. This is a tough one for me. I've had a hard time understanding this. Do you have any thoughts on that stanza?
Yeah, what's he talking about there? Any kind of freedom coming clean is just another state of mind, right? So if you're trying to get free from this relationship, you have to be in another state of mind to do it, because where you're at right now, you can't see it. So if you want to get some freedom, if you want to be clear of all this, you have to kind of go to a new place, understand what's happened so you can see it. You can't see it, the big picture. You can't get that freedom right now because you're into it. You're involved in this relationship that's in turmoil kind of thing, right?
So you need to get some distance, which is another way of saying move on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're trying to understand it. You're trying to get free from all this, but it's another state of mind. You're not in that state of mind yet. That's like step 4 or something like that, right? You're not there yet.
Yeah. Okay. That's good. That's a good 12-step reference there. Yeah. I
12
like
steps of breakups.
Hey, there you go. Well, or what were the 5 stages of grief, which is
something like that.
Denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. If I remember those right.
There's got to be a few more for a relationship gone bad, I would think,
Well, probably, or extending them, it takes a while. And then the chorus, and then, so take the best of all that's left. This cannot last. So you only get one life. The negative feelings will not last forever, but your time on this earth is also not going to last forever. He doesn't want to say it as bluntly as get on with it, but he is basically saying, to quote the Shawshank Redemption, get busy living or get busy dying.
Yeah.
Even though your mother was your maker, from her apron strings you pass. And this is kind of a gentle way of reminding the listener, you have to grow up. You're not a kid anymore, and you have what it takes to move on from this or to move forward. You don't need to go crying to mom or to dad or to whomever raised you saying, you have it within you. And so it's kind of a vote of confidence to the listener, don't you think?
Yeah. And I like that reference, the apron strings, like the little toddler pulling at her mother's apron strings. Like, can I have a drink? Like, that's what I look at it, right? You've passed through that. You're not there anymore. You got to be a man up, right? Kind of thing.
Yeah. Or be who you are when you are right now. Okay. You're not a kid anymore. Just think about the fool who by his virtue can be found in a most unusual situation playing jester to the clown. I mean, this is stuff that I think even Dylan would look at and say, wow, where did he come up with that? It's beautiful poetry, but I have no idea what it means. So, Lee, what do you think?
Yeah, this is a tough one, too. Think about the fool who's by his virtue can be found, right? This guy's a fool, and because he's acting this way, he's put himself in this situation, which is most unusual. because he's playing fool to another fool kind of thing, right? So whoever he's in this relationship with, they're a fool as well, and they've turned him to a fool. So you got, jester to the clown, you got a fool's fool kind of thing. That's the way I kind of look at it, right? This guy's in the situation because, he's not thinking straight. He's the fool to the fool.
Well, something I just thought of, Lee, is that he might be kind of stepping out of himself. I mean, he might be saying, okay, look at me. Okay, I've been through this. I was a clown or I was a jester. I was a fool myself. And look at me. I made it through okay.
Yeah, just think about all these other people who have gone through the same thing that you're going through, right?
Yeah.
They've played the fool themselves and they've moved on. So don't think that you're the only one, right?
Yeah, but it's beautiful, beautiful poetry. Just great job there.
And the way he sings it too and it's the melody. That's the one part of the song too where he doubles himself. The background vocals come in, right? There's background vocals on the chorus, but the verses are quite empty. He comes in with background vocals on those final two lines of that last verse.
Okay, so it's kind of this idea that he is echoing, maybe he's talking to himself, but it's definitely a two-way thing going on. He's not just speaking out to, you haven't the biggest idea what. I mean, now it's implied that there's somebody else in this conversation, right?
Right, yeah.
And then the chorus twice and then out. The song was on Summertime Dream originally. That was his 12th album. It was the first track on the record, like we've said. And then Lightfoot re-recorded it in 1988 for Gord's Gold 2. And I've never listened to the two back to back. Have you?
Yeah, and I just did prior to us speaking, and the Gord's Gold Volume 2 is awful. It's terrible.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. I mean, the song is great. It's the same song. They're just playing the same song. So the song's great, but the production is just awful. It's 1988 production. So you listen to the 76 version, and it sounds amazing. Right, like I said, you got Terry Klempens has got some little phaser effect on his guitar. The pedal steel is great. The pedal steel we haven't really talked about much, but that's really a big part of that Lightfoot sound that I love. Pee-wee playing a lot on the original track. On the re-record, it's not there. You got Mike Heffernan playing keyboards, and it pales in comparison. Right, you listen to the drums on the 76 version. It's very dry sounding drums. Sound like they're in a room with you. Right, you listen to the 88 version. It's all this reverb and effect on the drums. It's too shiny. Lightfoot music shouldn't be shiny, right? Like that record, East of Midnight, that David Foster produced. Some good songs on it, but the production is like wrong for Lightfoot. Lightfoot's got to be ruthy, earthy. Got to have some wood on that song, right? So, I definitely prefer the 76 version.
We'll be right back to our conversation with Lee McCormack about Race Among the Ruins. But first, a word from one of our podcast partners.
Hi, this is Audie Martello, the host of the Mostly Folk podcast, a 60-minute foray into the music we all love. You will hear newly released albums, classic folk, country, and bluegrass music, as well as some traditional music that may or may not be true to the genre. Sometimes irreverent, often opinionated, but always entertaining. You may even hear a radio magic trick every so often, as well as numerous interviews via Zoom and telephone with established as well as indie artists. Mostly Folk is available wherever you listen to podcasts, and always at mostlyfolk.org.
Yeah, the thing that I noticed about a lot of songs that came out in the 80s that you're talking about, and particularly 86, 87, 88, maybe a little bit of 89, machines were making most of the music. Mm-hmm. There's a great story about McCartney hanging out with some musicians in the recording studio, not in the studio, but in the green room or something. And one of them gets up and says, "Oh, it's time for me to go do my part." Okay. And he disappears and he comes back 5 minutes later. And McCartney said, "Oh, wow, you must have gotten the take and, got it in one take." You're something like that. "Oh, no, I got up, lifted up the bass and I just went dunk." That was it. Just dunk. Okay. And the machines were going to bend the rest of it so that the overall effect is that it's too polished. And I think that's what you're talking about with the re-recording on Gord's Gold 2, that it's too seamless. It's too finely crafted. There's no spontaneity to it. It's too contrived is the word I'm looking for.
Yeah, and they're trying to compete with what's on the radio Lightfoot's looking at maybe getting some of his old songs on the radio, and that's what everything sounded like. So I can see why they went that way. But in hindsight, it was a mistake. You look at Gord's Gold, the original version, where he did re-records, and he actually improved some of those older songs by re-recording them. But it's the opposite effect on this version, the Gold Golden Tooth.
A lot of people I've talked to have said, why did he do that? The songs and for the second greatest hits were fine as the way they are. Why didn't he just take that? There were probably some very complicated reasons for it, which we won't go into right now, but it was what it was. The people who played on this, we've named pretty much all of them here. Lightfoot was playing 6 and 12 string. Of course, he was doing the vocals. Terry Clements was playing lead acoustic and electric guitars. Pee Wee was playing pedal steel. Rick Haynes playing bass, and you said in some live versions, he'll do a sort of backing vocal or a harmony. And then Barry Keane was playing drums. So this is pretty well established territory for Gordon in Sundown, Cold on the Shoulder, Summertime Dream, and maybe even into Endless Wire by that time. I mean, his accompaniment is pretty well knit together at that point. The song has been played only, I found this kind of interesting. I mean, it came out in 76 and then was released as a single in 77. It's only been played 64 times in concert that I could find. The first time was in June of 76 at the Montreux Jazz Festival. And I've been to Montreux and I've been in that room, and it's a great, room to perform. If you've never been there, I mean, I hope you get a chance to perform in there because it's just an amazing room. While he was promoting the Summertime Dream album, he did play it on the Rolling Thunder Review. They had at some venue in Toronto, and I can't remember the name of it. I don't think it was Massey Hall, but it was some other, maybe it was the Sky Dome. I can't remember.
That was the Dylan show that he joined.
Correct.
Right? Yeah, that would have been Maple Leaf Gardens.
There it is. Thank you. Yeah, Maple Leaf Gardens. That's
the hockey arena there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and his set was right before Dylan's set and right after Joan Baez's set, if I'm not mistaken. And then the most recent performance of it was at Elkhart, Indiana at the Lerner Theater. And that was on May 21st of this year. And I'm sure he's still doing it on the current tour. So I'm sure he's still doing it. You mentioned that you saw him in, did you say 93?
Yeah.
Okay. Did he play that song at that show?
I can't remember. I'd have to check, Mike. I have the bootleg upstairs the cassette that I made that night. I could check. I know I've seen it live a few times. He did an El Macombo club show during the COVID pandemic there. What was that? Right. December 2020 he did it. And it was like a no audience show. And he did about 20 songs. And he did it that night. That was great. Yeah, I know I've seen it live a few times. Not every time. I know I've seen that one a few times and House You Live In a few times. A few shows he would do either that one or that one, that one or that one. I love both those songs off that record.
Yeah. And we are going to do The House You Live In at some point, in the show, probably next season. But I think it's interesting. It's such a great song. It was released as a single. I'll talk about how it went in just a minute. He played it 7 times in the 70s, 14 times in the 80s, twice in the 90s, and he didn't play it at all between 2000 and 2010. He played it 27 times in the 2010s, and he's played it 15 times so far this decade. Makes me wonder, is that more of a statement that he has just so many great songs to pick from, or do you think maybe he just got tired of playing that tune? Because I could listen to that thing all day.
Yeah, I imagine it's probably both. I'm wondering how accurate that is too, right? Because he played probably so many times and people weren't recording set lists all the time, right? No. And all the songs he would play, like that's the one thing about Lightfoot too. He doesn't just play the hits. He'll go into like a lot of deep cuts, right? And he'll drop songs. He'll just get tired of them. Like he hates For Loving Me. He'll never play that song again.
Exactly. Yes.
He despises that. And he hasn't played Canadian Railroad Trilogy in a long time. I don't know why. I think that's one of the ultimate songs. Maybe just too much for him. He's tired of it. But that one he doesn't pull it anymore. I don't know. It's what the artist feels like,
Oh, totally. And it's his show. I mean, he can do whatever he wants. And
the other thing too, I'll mention quick, Mike, is being a songwriter myself, maybe it's a little bit too personal for him too. And sometimes he just doesn't want to go through those emotions on stage, right? There are a few songs like that. Sometimes it's too personal.
Yeah. As a songwriter myself, I mean, I can certainly appreciate that. There are some things that are in my catalog, and I haven't been an active performer in quite a while, but there are some things that I've written that I'm thinking, this is making me uncomfortable in some way. Okay, either it's cutting too close to the bone, or it was too juvenile, or it just doesn't fit the person I am right now. So I'm just not going to do it. Like if I were in an open mic or something like that, I just wouldn't do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
The song did get released as a single, which is one of the reasons that I was kind of surprised he hasn't played it as much. It's the third single from the album. The title track and Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald were the first two singles. And then the third one was Race Among the Ruins. That was released as a single in February of 77. And it did very well. In Canada, it went to 30 on the RPM charts, 11 on the adult contemporary charts, and then 14 on the Canadian country charts, 65 on the Billboard Hot 100, 13 in US adult contemporary. It did not chart as a single in either the UK or Australia. And usually Lightfoot's done pretty well in Australia, not terribly well in the UK. The album went to number 1 in Canada, 12 in the US, and 63 in Australia. So it did show that Lightfoot had some staying power after Sundown. He was still kind of walking on water at this point.
Yeah, this is the peak as far as I'm concerned, Lightfoot, the mid 70s, coming off of Sundown, Gord's Gold with those re-records, which were just phenomenal, and then putting out Summertime Dream with the Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald and these songs. Like that's kind of the peak Lightfoot for me, this era. Could do no wrong. Great live show too. This is when my father saw him live in the 70s, and yeah, he was just great. He looked cool. He had the denim shirts, he had the mustache going, the little beard, He's drinking a little bit, so he's a little wild. He's a little crazy, smoking cigarettes. He kind of had that kind of whiskey saloon bar country kind of vibe, outlaw. Not an outlaw, but he would fit in there with Waylon Jennings and Willie Nelson in that kind of scene.
I think he would have fit into the Highwaymen, honestly. And if the timing had been different on all of that. It's been covered by two artists that I could find, and I'm not talking about people who have just put stuff up on YouTube. Barbara J., whose real name I think is Barbara Williams, and then there was something called the Internet Tribute. And if there have been other covers, I don't know about them. Have you found any?
No, I'm not aware of those covers or any others.
But I'm not sure they'd be as good as the original, no matter what you did with them.
Yeah, I doubt it.
Yeah. Okay, well, Lee, as we're wrapping up here, who would you like to hear cover this song from modern music? Or is it one of those you just know nobody could do it justice, let's just leave it alone?
I'd like to hear myself cover it.
Well, that's a modest answer.
Yeah, well, I played a few Gordon Lightfoot songs live, and I've recorded a few. This is one that I would bust out live.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to say Steve Earle, though. I love Steve Earle, and I think Steve Earle will do a great version of this. I saw him do a live version of Sundown, which was great. And I know he's a big admirer of Gord. There's a little passage in the Lightfoot book where Steve Earle just kind of went up to Gordon Lightfoot's door, and he kind of just knocked on the door and said, "Hi, I'm Steve Earle. I just wanted to meet you." So they had a little moment there kind of thing, because he had so much respect for him. So, I'd love to hear Steve take a shot at this one.
That'd be fun. I'd like to hear Vince Gill try it, because it does have some suggestions of a country song. And I know Vince Gill is now with the Eagles, but he did begin, with Pure Prairie League, and that sort of country rock flavor to it. I wouldn't mind hearing Garth Brooks take a shot, and then I'd kind of like to hear Neil Young do it. And Neil Young's not known for singing other people's words, but he is somebody that I think has a feel for it, and that's not simply because he's Canadian. I think he would have an affinity for this kind of song.
Yeah, Neil would do it good for sure. He does everything good. He's so awesome. But that one record he did, he covered 2 Lightfoot songs on it a while ago. A Letter Home, do you know that record by Neil Young?
I think I heard a bit of that on the documentary.
Yeah, that's the one he did with Jack White, where it's recorded in it's like a telephone booth, where back in the day soldiers would go in this telephone booth and they record like an audio message to be sent home. So Neil Young recorded an album all from this booth, so it has kind of that old-timey, scratchy kind of audio sound to it. And it's all kind of covers, right? All solo acoustic. And he does If You Could Read My Mind and Early Morning Rain on that record.
I've heard him do Early Morning Rain, and he does a pretty good job on it, although I still think Gord can sing that song better than anybody.
Absolutely.
But I'd like to hear Neil try that one. Okay, Lee, so here's our cumulative question. Let's say Gord is playing at Massey, and you get to decide what the opening song of the opening set is going to be. What song are you going to choose?
It's a tough one. The first thing that comes to mind is Rich Man Spiritual because it's the first song on the first record. And I kind of love stuff like that. It's the first song on the first record. I'm going to open the show with it, right? That would be cool. I love The Way I Feel. I don't think I've ever seen him play that live. He doesn't play that live often. I think that would be a cool song to open with. Do you know the song Movin'?
I've heard it, yeah.
Movin' was never released on a record. It came out for a CBC show. And he did this song called Movin'. You can find it on YouTube, but that's a cool song. So something like that would be neat. Oh, what we're going to go with, Mike, is Bend in the Water, the first track off of Cold on the Shoulder. So with that guitar part, with the bass drum, I think that would be a great song to kick off the show. And it's got kind of a nice sing-along part. Like Gore would say, a nice little toe tapper to get it going, kind of thing, right?
He loves that phrase. Yeah. Great one. Lee McCormack, thank you so much. You know, I can tell that your enthusiasm is really infectious when we're talking about Lightfoot, and I'd love to have you back on the show again soon.
Anytime, man. Pick a song. I'm there for you, Mike.
And thanks for listening, everybody. If you like this well enough to listen to the whole thing, tell somebody about it. Carefree Highway Revisited is on Apple, Spotify, Acast, or wherever you get your podcasts. Our website is www.lightfootpodcast.com, and our Patreon page is www.patreon.com/carefreehighwayrevisited. You can reach me, Mike Messner, at teachermike72@gmail.com. Our next episode will be coming out on or about the last week of June, and my guest will be Donnie Scrooge, and he will be talking about Sea of Tranquility. Until then, this is Mike Messner reminding you, run for the roses, but don't forget to stop and smell them. We'll see you next time. Episode will be coming out on or about the last week of June, and my guest will be Donnie Scrooge, and he will be talking about Sea of Tranquility. Until then, this is Mike Messner reminding you, run for the roses, but don't forget to stop and smell them. We'll see you next time.
You think you had the last laugh, now you know this can't be true. Even though the sun shines down upon you now, sometimes you must feel blue. You make the best of each new day, you try not to be sad, even though the sky falls